I wanted to see if I could cover all the different ways that we get triggered through this entire process when we have some extreme trauma. And today we're going to cover spiritual teachers, one of my favorites. Okay, before I start, I need to qualify this a little bit that this is humorous to a degree. I'm not calling anybody out. I don't want to really blast anybody, just so that, so there's no mistaking this. That being said, spiritual teachers. I started looking at YouTube videos, reading books probably 10, 15 years ago. And god damn, right? There's a lot out there. There's a lot of fluff out there. There's a lot of nonsense out there. And a lot of stuff that's just cringy. Why do I bring this up? Is because when we have a lot of trauma and we first start seeking and looking around for some answers, maybe for some stability, some kind of anything, we're generally going to turn towards videos because that's readily accessible. I mean, YouTube has got 101 million awakening teachers, non-duality teachers, Buddhist teachers, Zen teachers, Tibetan, and all the rest. And I found I had a really hard time with this, and it changed as I moved through this journey. In the very beginning, I was really excited just to see that there were other people out there that were sharing about this at all. Because when I started, there wasn't a whole lot of this stuff. And then as I went along and I had some level of clarity, whilst also having a lot of my shadow work come up, I started noticing different patterns with teachers and patterns that would trigger me. And stuff that would make me feel really pretty nice and go, all right, that makes sense. I can get down with that. And other stuff that would make me extremely angry. And the ones that really got me were the ones that I sensed were, there was a number of different times, but the ones that I sensed were insincere. Okay, so if we've been through a lot of stuff in our lives, we have bullshit meters, and trauma folks tend to have hyper maxed out bullshit meters. We have no tolerance for nonsense, no tolerance for insincerity, no tolerance for fakeness, and we can smell bullshit a mile away. And I would see some of these teachers and just be like, yo, who are you talking to? And having had a couple of insights myself, it became very obvious, very apparent that there were some folks that were simply like parrots, like they heard stuff and they were just repeating it. And this would drive me, up the wall because I just didn't sense any substance being transmitted through that. My greater sense of frustration in that one was seeing how many people flock to that and going, like, am I the only one that sees through the emperor's new clothes? I mean, why are you listening to so and so and see them gain a tremendous amount of popularity? It's just like, fuck, guys. Then I would encounter other points, when we're really activated, which tends to be most of the time if we're really deep in the middle of processing through some stuff, if some core identities are getting stripped away, then the teachers that were making very, very bold statements, any kind of absolute statement was one that would really, really get me. An example, any and all of the non-dual speech, anything that was really denying what I felt like I was going through, or the aspect of awakening that is directly connected to humanity. Whether we agree with it or not, whether we doctrinally want to argue it or not, we still inhabit the bodies, right? So when that was discounted in any way, shape, or form, it really got, I would really get upset. You hear somebody say something along the lines of, well, and they'd look at the camera really convincingly and say, well, you are God. Okay, might be true, but I just had 3 crash outs. I don't know where my rent is coming from, and you're staring at me with this really, really sort of serene expression, telling me I'm God. What the fuck good does that do for anybody? And these are the kind of reactions I would have. I went so far as to call out a couple of teachers. I did it privately. I wouldn't do it again, nor would I recommend it. And in my state at the time, and I got pretty immediate responses back. And in my state at the time, I was sort of gloating a little bit because there was some reactivity that got put back towards me. And I was like, aha, motherfuckers, I got you. And I derived some sort of twisted sense of satisfaction about it at the time. Later on, I kind of went, well, yeah, you know. So, what is it about teachers that really get us? You know, that can really send us into these fits. For me, to all joking aside, there was a few things, and these are important to note. Although in the first few minutes of this video, I've made light of it. There were some deeper things happening for me. One was not seeing a lot of people that I felt like were like me, and when I say like me, I mean people who had been through really, really extreme trauma, and not seeing any of that. So seeing folks that I felt like were sliding in easier into these what I thought were states of bliss and peace and equanimity and no self and all the like. And then the teachers themselves were communicating that. And then I would even going into the comments section and be like, everyone was loving and lighting it up. And I was sitting there just mad at my existence, enraged that I had even been drug into this bullshit awakening process. And I was just like, and it communicated to me a real sense of, I always felt like I was on the outside looking in, that there was some sort of club, there was something that I wasn't getting. And it's really painful. It's very painful to experience that. The other one, of course, was the insincerity, and not every teacher that's out there has had some sort of level of realization. This is like any other language that you can memorize and you can use a lot of buzzwords and project a persona, and people will flock to it. The deeper ones were that I sensed it wasn't doing anything for me. I felt like, yes, there was a sense of truth. We'll talk about like a non-dual speaker that seems sincere, that seems like they've had some clarity, and they would say these truths. And some part of me would go, yes, I've touched into that. Maybe I've had an experience. Maybe I've had a flash, or some bits of the identity have fallen off. But it's not helping me now. There's nothing for me. What do I do now? What am I supposed to do with this information? How am I supposed to get from where it is that I'm at, which is in relative hell, over to where you're at, where you seem to be really serene and very placid? I just couldn't understand that. And what was happening at the time was I was making comparisons. And I'm not talking about comparisons between whatever the state was here and the teachers, but more I was making comparisons based on a model of awakening that I thought was true. If I am awake, if I have gone through all these shifts, if I have seen through no self, then fill in the blank. My behavior will be like this. I will be excluded from any future reactivity. I will generally just feel good all the time. And the toughest pill for me to swallow, and admittedly the one that took me a really, really, really long time to see clearly, is that non-duality, if you want to use that phrase, or if you just want to say awakening to your true nature, is not connected to specifics. It's not connected to a state. It's not connected to a sense of peace. It's not connected to a sensation that we experience all the time. Non-duality itself simply means not two. And if it's not two, then there's room for all of it. And I mean all of it. Reactivity, anger, separation, delusion, rage, terror, fear, sadness, crash outs, apparent regression along the path. There's room for all of that. Now, at the time, because there was so much unresolved stuff here, there was no way I was going to swallow that. And I do remember at some point, there was this sense where I went, this is all a trick. This is all a trick that's been propagated for the last 3,000 or 4,000 years, and it started out with the Brahmins and the Buddhas, the Buddhists, and then all the way up to you guys are just trying to trick me into accepting whatever the hell comes along my way in my life, and that's not what I signed up for, and that's not what I bargained for. I remember seeing through that and going, "This is stupid. Why am I doing this?" And then to only have that reinforced with looking at some of the teachers who just seem to be so fucking placid. I think generally speaking, we come into this awakening, the trauma folks, we come into it with the most horrible combination of being cynical, skeptical, and desperate all at the same time. Both of those. And they are both functioning right up in the foreground at all times. So there's some part of us that wants to let go into this stuff, or to really absorb what someone else is saying, or to spend some time doing some inquiry, or just sitting and seeing what's here, or listening to what a teacher says, or following some steps, or whatever. And the other part is like, man, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. Why should I trust you? Then looking at their apparent awakening, their serenity, how peaceful they are. And instead of saying, maybe it might have worked for them, or maybe they've uncovered something, or maybe some sort of true nature has been revealed, they go, yeah, you're a fucking fake. So it's like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Teachers can be valuable. Teachers can be highly valuable. I think it's important to use discernment. And I think that discernment is not only good to direct out at other people that you see talking about this, but yourself. We direct it back here and go, what kind of state am I in right now? What am I feeling? Am I feeling really, really triggered right now? Did I just go through some kind of crash out? Are my trauma centers all being lit up right now? And it was surprisingly, it took forever, it seemed like, for me. I felt like such a dummy to finally really notice that the only time I was really, really going after these other teachers, here, being frustrated with them, was when I had already started out. I moved into that day, or into the game itself, when I was already just not feeling good at all. And I was just already in some shadow stuff, and I was already just lit up. And then I would find myself going out to a video and looking for that type of comfort. Something, anything, make me feel better. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the sentiment when that trauma is up there of make me feel better. But at some point, it needs to include, and then I think fully switch over into, I just want the truth. Now, that may not reveal itself for a really, really long time. When I first heard, the first person I heard say that was Adyashanti, and he says, most people just want to feel better, but very, very few want the truth. And that one, of all the thousands of hours of his stuff that I listened to, really, really stuck with me. And it became sort of an inquiry on my own. And I had to be really, really deeply honest with myself and go, do I just want truth? Or do I want to simply just feel better? Do I just need some relief? Do I really, really, really want the truth? Because part of the truth, I'm not going to say this is an absolute, not even close, but part of the truth is that any and everything is allowed in this existence, up to and including anger, rage, fear, sadness, despair, depression. Now, that can obviously, I realize for some folks to hear that right now can be very challenging. So then it's okay to say, I just want some relief. It's two different points here that we're at as trauma folks when we're moving through this stuff. And we'll say that there's sort of a stable one, which is just sort of our normal everyday, and the other one, which is when we're triggered, when we are completely overrun by the meta identity that is trauma. And when you're overrun by that, looking for a little relief, I don't see as a problem. It can't be the complete and total go-to all the time, but I don't see a problem with it. Eventually, though, that desire for truth has to come through. What is this really? Who am I really? Which is why there's so much emphasis on settling down the personality. You know, settling down the personality in and of itself is not likely to lead to realization or identity shifts or the various levels of awakening. But it can be really, really, really beneficial to get that personality settled and stable so that there's some room, so that there's some space, so that we can start to inquire from a place of genuine curiosity and not that desperation that we showed up with. I know that the desperation here pushed me for a long time. And it pushed me into some really, really dark spaces where I felt, even after having had some shifts, that maybe it was better that I just simply wasn't here. Heartbreaking. Just didn't want to be here. That almost made it worse. And I'm going to cover that a little bit in the next one, which is mystical experiences. I'll probably save that one for a whole video. So let the teachers be there, but understand that as many personality types as are out there and as many people that are out there looking for this or stumble onto it, there are as many teachers. And a whole bunch of them are there to simply make people feel better. What the fuck is wrong with that? Nothing. Who cares whether they're realized or not? What does that have to do with where we're at? Doesn't. How does that change one bit about the fact that whether you're activated or not, whether those teachers are realized or not, that everything is happening in this? And can we back up for a minute and look and really inquire with the curiosity, what is this? So as long as we're out there looking at the other teachers, that's a distraction. Then it becomes something we can compare. Well, I'm farther along than this teacher, or this teacher doesn't have it at all, or this teacher makes me feel good. Note the emphasis on the me. Makes me feel good because they're saying the same things that I agree with. Then that can potentially create a greater sense of separation, or it moves you into a camp. I'm over into this camp here. I'm a non-dual purist. I'm a Theravadan. I'm a Zen guy. I'm a whatever. None of these things are inherently bad, but if we add them on as secondary identities, then it's just one more thing that's going to have to be examined, felt through, and eventually dropped. So I assure you, no teachers were harmed in the making of this video. I did just want to throw in my 2 cents about that. Trust your gut, trust your instinct, bring that alertness and that curiosity to how you're feeling when we start throwing out those external judgments and doing the comparisons. Till next time, be blessed.